Hello and welcome to this edition of Tips and Tricks. Now today I'm going to be telling you a story about a technique that most people have probably never seen before, especially when bed fishing. Now I've been fishing for bass for like 40 years, but I never tried for bed fish. I never tried sight fishing. I heard about it, I just never tried it. So the way I learned about it, and it's probably the way a lot of people learn about it, and what technique and what type of bait to put on. I was at Santa Margarita Lake. I came in on my boat and there was a guy standing there right at the edge of the launch ramp, and I saw him like pitching in, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? He goes, oh, there's a giant female right here and two males on beds and I'm trying to catch her. And I look and I'm like, it was big. It was probably like 6, 7, 8 pounds, the female that was cruising around. And I went, oh yeah, I've always heard about this, but I've never bed fished. I don't know how to do it. And so he told me, oh, go get your rod, put on like a big 4 or 5 inch crawdad or a big jig, and I'll show you how to do it. So I'm okay. So I ran to my boat, got it, rigged it up, came back, and he's all, okay, here's what you do. You pitch it, you put it right there on the nest, and then you just kind of just leave it there, wiggle it, and they'll start getting pissed off, and then they'll start hitting it, and then you just keep doing it. You keep it on their nest, and yeah, they get really pissed, and you just every time you see them take it, you just set the hook. And so I sat there and took about 30 minutes, I think, and this is my first ever bedfish, and I did finally end up catching it. I think I had like a 5 inch craw by Colbert or something with Texas rig, and he told me to put on like a 3/8 or ½ ounce weight. But I did it. I caught my very first bedfish. And then the next day I went out of my boat and I kind of repeated the process on a bunch. I found like 10 beds or something. And man, some of them I just gave up on. It was the same. I would try to set that hook on them like freaking 10 times, 20 times. I'm like, and sometimes I just go, oh, forget it. And I'd try to go find another one. But see, the thing is, when they already get to the point that they're on the bed, they're need to eat is shut off. Nature goes, don't eat anything. So when you put these bigger things on their nests and that, yeah, they start hitting it and they start popping it. A lot of times they don't want to eat it. Eating's turned off. They're just trying to kill it. And the thing is with these bigger baits and that is a lot of times they're just they're popping it in and spitting it, and they're doing it so quick. You have like a second or less than a second to set that hook in. And those are the angry ones. A lot of times you get like the gentle bass on the bed, and because of these, they'll come up and they'll like just pick it up by the claws, and then they'll just swim about a foot or two and drop it. And if you're bed fishing, unless it's dead calm, there's a little bit of ripple, you're sitting there looking at it and you suddenly see a little flash of their mouth open, or all of a sudden you see your line start swimming away, oh, it's got it, you set the hook and you're like, ah, it took my claws, damn it. Okay, so that's the traditional way to bed fish, and the way most of us learn to bed fish. I see a lot of people doing it on YouTube videos, and that's how they're doing their bed fishing. But today I'm going to be talking about a finesse technique, and this technique is it's so much better, and you can catch them so much quicker. And how I learned this is I used to do the FLWs. I did them for 8 years. I did them on the Clear Lake and Delta, and I think at least 4 of those tournaments over those 8 years were bed fishing tournaments. And co-anglers hated it because a lot of those pros, they'll get on a nest, they'll sit there, and like that first fish I caught took me a ½ hour to catch it. And so you're sitting in the back of the boat, they're not moving, they're just pitching at the same fish over and over, and you don't really have anywhere to cast. And they're hitting each bed and they're sitting on the bed sometimes. Well, one co-angler told me his pro sat for an hour and a half on a bed trying to get the bass, and he actually ended up not getting it. So basically he wasted an hour and a half of his fishing time because the pro wouldn't leave this fish, and he didn't even get it. But now I was on a tournament where it was a bed fishing, a sight fishing tournament. That's pretty much all the pattern. And when I met with my pro, he goes, yeah, I'm gonna be sight fishing, sorry, but I got a lot of fish on beds. And I was kind of like, oh, this is not gonna be fun. So we get to the spot, pro gets out, puts down the trolling motor, starts cruising along. I go and get my stuff, and all of a sudden I turn around and look at him, and he's on the front deck with a spinning rod in his hand. A spinning rod with a little drop shot hook up like this, like a little six inch up off the bottom. He's got 8-pound line. He's got a medium action spinning rod. I'm like, I thought he said he was sight fishing. Like I've never seen this. I've never heard of this. I mean, this isn't the way you sight fish. You get your big things and you put them on Finesse and you piss them off. And to my shock, like I see him, he goes, oh, there's one on the bed. Pitches the worm in there. Nothing. Pitches in the second time. Get the net. Get the net. I'm like, how'd you get him that quick? And so then he kept doing it. He goes, oh, there's another nest. And I swear, within the first or second little pitch, oh, got him. Get the net. Get the net. I'm like, I'm like, how, what? And then here's another little trick that the pros do with this. Not only the Finesse thing, which was totally blew me away, but if he throws that Finesse out there, and he had this, he had a little drop shot hookup, but he also had like a little 1/8 ounce shaky head with a little like baby craw. The craw was only like 3 inches long. But both Finesse, both on spinning, both on 8-pound line. Sometimes if he'd pitch out there and that bass didn't even look at it, he'd go, oh, this one needs some encouragement. And so then, and only then, he would go over and he would pick up either a big creature bait or a big jig. He'd start throwing at the nest. Throw on it, he'd be throwing on it for like 10-15 minutes, and he'd miss, he'd set the hook like 10 times something. He'd get him, he goes, all right, she's ready now. Grab the net. He would go over, whoa, almost a disaster, almost a disaster. But then he would go over and pick up his little drop shot or the little 1/8 ounce. And sure enough, first pitch, boom, fish, get the net, get the net. And these weren't all your little, 1-2 pounders. Some of these fish that they were getting off the nest were like 4, 5, and 6 pounds. And I know because I had to net them all. And they're on that light line, there's a lot of fight in that. So there's a lot of pressure to be able to net them on that. But yeah, so that's how I discovered this Finesse technique. But man, I'm telling you, you gotta try it. I did a little video a little while ago about me with the Ned, and I have some footage coming up right here of me playing around with the little Finesse on beds at Clear Lake. That footage coming up. But then, this was like a couple years ago on that. But I was like, who learned this, or who picked this up? Because I learned it the other way. Everybody else always throws big stuff and all that. Who's the person or the pro or whatever that figured out throwing 8-pound line Finesse on bedfish, and some big bedfish? How did this come about? And then I have this thing about KVD and all of his wins, and he won a sight fishing tournament. And in here he describes how he beat out all the stick bedfishmen. Like, he wasn't even in the running. Like, nobody thought KVD would even do good at all in this tournament, and he ended up winning it. But here's what he said he rigged. He rigged the 4-inch worm, dirt color, not white. That's another thing too. People always want to use white on it, but all different colors work. On an 1/8 ounce Strike King tour grade shaky head jig, and cast it on 8-pound Pro XPS fluorocarbon line on a 7-foot 4-inch quantum medium action KVD spinning rod. And his other technique was to put the baby rage craw on the same shaky head. So I really think the lighter line, slower fall, and total Finesse package helped me get more bites from the fussy fish, because it was more natural, more of a natural presentation. So there you go, guys. Now I'm going to run the footage. This is me at Clear Lake, because I learned this, and I stayed 2 days after the tournament one time, and the fish were on bed. So I went out with the Ned, and I think I found every fish I found on the bed I caught. And well, check this out.
Let me go back and catch this one. Got him. Got him. Got him. Got him. Got him.
And then after that, I went to, we were at Nazi one time, and I saw a couple spots on beds, and I did say, I think one I caught on the end, and one I just had a little 4-inch Finesse flicking. I had it wacky rigged, but on an 1/8 ounce flicking. And these took like 5 minutes for each fish.
Nosing on it. There he is. Want to catch a nest fish, Max? Nest fish!
I caught a bedfish. There he is. I still got my bed fishing skills. So yeah guys, I'm telling you, don't try this. Try this little finesse technique. I know people will see you with a spinning rod when you're bed fishing and be, what the fuck are you doing, man? And you'll be, I'm catching fish and I'm not spending an hour on them, a half hour on them. I'm catching them in like 10-15 minutes or less. But it's so light and so little when they just like, I don't want to mess with it. I was just trying to kill that big ass thing. This little thing, fuck you. Get out of here, you bitch. So anyway, there you go guys. That's gonna do it for this little tips and tricks. I hope it helped. Until next time.